Kia ora koutou. Let's call this part 3 of the toy car, or my first project. Hopefully everyone's got to this stage. You've managed to drill 4 holes for screws for the wheels, and this housing joint is cut out for the firewall, and the firewall is what we will build in this clip. So just back to the finished model, that's this thing here, or maybe it's called a dashboard. I'm just calling it a firewall. Protects the passengers from the heat of the engine. So the technique is going to be, we'll draw this thin rectangle shape and then extrude it across the width of the chassis, and that will make our little piece of wood. So one of the very important rules of Fusion is to make sure you always activate the folder of the component that you intend to model, and that's what we're going to do today, is activate the firewall and make the firewall. You'll notice that the chassis goes transparent. That's because we've activated this folder. The chassis folder, when you activate it, shows us in clear detail the color of the chassis, but when you activate the firewall, it says, okay, that's not as important as our firewall information, but it's good to be able to see it. It's going to help us draw the shapes that we want. Okay, so first of all, we need to use the sketch command to draw that rectangle edge. So use this the sketch command, and Fusion wants to know what surface will you draw on, and you can select these surfaces here, but the one we want actually is that the edge of the chassis. We want that surface. I want you to see if you can select that. You can see that Fusion identifies different surfaces on that chassis, but we want to draw on this edge. So make sure you can see that that grid plane has sort of popped onto that chassis edge. Click on that. And now you'll notice all the tools up here have changed into the sketch environment. Zoom in. It's a really good habit to have. So make sure you zoom in so you're right up close to the thing that you're drawing or modeling. And then we want the 2-point rectangle. So if it's not showing up there, create, and you should find rectangle tool up here and select that one. And now the cursor has a little rectangle attached to it and the crosshairs will pop on to known points, so it can see that chassis in the cutout shape. So I suggest you just pop the cursor onto that corner, click and then drag up, and while that first dimension is active, and it's highlighted in blue, just type in 40 and then hit tab, and then make sure that that second dimension says 15. If it doesn't, you can just type in 15 and then press enter, and there it goes. Immediately we're happy with that, we can hit the finish sketch button. From here, the next step is to use extrude, and you'll notice all the tools have changed to the solid modeling tools. Sketch ones have been turned off. Extrude, and then place your cursor on that rectangle, click and drag that arrow. Fusion says that that's actually a negative direction, but that's fine. And while that dimension is highlighted blue, you can actually type in -80. If you remember from an earlier clip that the chassis is 80mm wide, and then click OK on this dialog box. So just to make sure you can see everything, if you just activated the chassis, you'd only see the chassis and the firewall would be grayed out, but if you activate that top folder, it shows you everything you've done, and that's what we want to see. So that looks good. We do need to give it a material. At the moment, that grey default material doesn't look that nice, so modify physical material. And then you need to scroll down and then hopefully find the wood folder if it wasn't opened up. So there's the wood folder, open it up, and then find a piece of timber that you like the look of, and it looks different to the chassis now. I quite like that contrast, so I suggest maybe just have a play with some different materials. close that. You can see that some bold black lines with a black dot there. That is actually our sketch from the firewall. So if you open up this arrow here, and you can open up that folder, you can see the sketch, and it's actually, when you put your cursor on that sketch file, if you like, the edge of the chassis and that shape of the firewall is highlighted. So that's good to know, because now you know where the sketch is, but I don't want to see it. So what I would like you to do is just use that eyeball to turn off the sketch, and it sort of cleans up that model, and you can collapse those folders back up again. So that looks good. I think I'm going to make this a short clip. So one last thing to do is I want to put a little curve on here, give it some shape, and I might even do that on the chassis as well. So the way to do that, if we're going to curve the firewall, make sure you've activated the firewall. So the curve command will be stored in the firewall folder, and the curve command is called this one here. It's actually called a fillet. So use the fillet tool, and you place your cursor on that corner and that one at the same time, and you can click and drag that arrow, and then you'll see, just go slowly, you can see how you can add some curvature to those corners. Now I'm going to make it 10mm, I think. That looks pretty good. So you can type in a size and then click OK on this dialog box. So that looks good. I'm just going to highlight again that top folder. Just have a look at what we've achieved there. It looks starting to take shape. I think I might also put some curves on the front and back of the chassis, just to give it some interest. I can't curve it too much, or else I'll eat into these tail light holes, but I'll at least put something on the front there too. So same rule applies again. I'm going to curve the chassis, therefore I need to activate the chassis folder. Find the fillet tool, and then click that corner and that one, and then I'm going to click and drag in and just give it a little bit of shape. Actually, I might make these a bit bigger. It looks quite good at about 15mm, so I'm going to type in 15 and then click OK. And I might just swing around and see if I can sort of round off the tail a little bit. Or maybe I might just... No, I might just leave the tail square, I think. Activate the top folder, and I think that's starting to look good. I'm going to leave this clip at this stage, and I'll post another one for the motor and perhaps the side panels, because I'll show you how to copy and paste components that look the same. Ka pai if you've got to this stage, and I will talk to you again soon. Kia ora.